Welcome back everyone. So far we have discussed about provisioning the unified CCX, where we created the resources or agents in unified CCX and created different skills and resource groups, and also created the CSQ, and we discussed about how we can use the CSQ to send the call out to the resource group or to the resource skill. And also we discussed about the different route selection criteria, like selecting the agent based on the longest available, or it can be linear, circular, more skilled and least skill based routing, and also based on order and weight for the skill based routing. And in this section we are going to discuss about how to create the applications. And whenever the unified CM receives a call, it should know how to send the call out to the unified CCX. So it needs a CTA route point to send the call out to the unified CCX, and also it needs a CTA ports. Through the CTA ports, it would send the call and establish the RDP stream with the unified CCX. So we would be creating the triggers and call control groups in unified CCX in this section. With that said, let me navigate over to the next slide. So we would be creating the call control group, which basically creates a pool of IVR ports or the CDI ports in unified CM. And we will create the application in unified CCX so that we would be able to either associate or create a new trigger in unified CCX, so that whenever the CUCM send the call out to the unified CCX, it can call the script and it can execute the script. With that said, let me quickly check the next slide, where we would see how exactly we create the application and call control group in unified CCX. So that would be created as CTA ports and CTA route point in unified CCX. So say for example, when a call comes for a generic number 3100, it sends to this voice gateway, and voice gateway signals the unified CECM. So CECM should know how to route the call out to the unified CCX. So we would be creating an application and associate the trigger to it with the DN 3100, and that would create the CTA route point in unified CM with the DN of 3100. Now the unified CM know how to route the call out to the UCCX with the help of the CTA route point. But we need to have the CTA ports to enforce the license to establish a session with the unified CCX. So we will create the call control group in unified CCX with 25 DNs, and that would contact the unified CUCM and create those 25 CTA ports. So with that said, let me quickly navigate over to the unified CCX administration web page, where we would be creating the call control group and application with trigger. So here we are in the unified CCX administration web page. We can go over to subsystem, unified CM telephony subsystem, and click call control group, which basically creates a pool of IVR ports. Let me click add new. I'm going to give the description, say for example, call control group for inbound. The number of CDA ports that I'm going to create is 25. It depends on the license we have, the number of IVR ports license we have in unified CCX, and this is going to be used for inbound voice. And if you're looking for outbound, you can select the outbound and create the call control group that would be used for making outbound calls. So here we're going to create for inbound. The device prefix name is CCG in. The starting DN is 3101. Going to use this device pool HQ. Internal CSS. HQ location. It's on partition internal PT. And we can give lot of other informations, but I just want to give the external phone number mask, and I would like to leave the other settings as the default one and click add. So it's asking us to provide the number. Yep, I missed it. So I'm going to create 25 CDA ports. When I click add, you can see that it's in the process of creating the CDA ports. And if you go over to phones in Unified CM and click find, you can see that the CDA ports are being created here. So far, it created 8 CDA ports, and may click find. And you can see that it's created 16 CDA ports. If you give it some time, it basically creates all the CDA ports or all the IVR ports, and that would be used for receiving the inbound call or inbound voice call. So I believe it's already almost created those 25 CDA ports. Let me navigate over to the CUCM and click find. And here you can see that it's created those 25 CDA ports. Okay. So with that said, our next task is to create the trigger. We can create the trigger through this here, but we should have the application available. For example, if I create a new trigger via the subsystem, CM telephony subsystem, it would ask me to associate the application. We haven't created any application so far. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the application first through the application management. Let me click new. This is going to be a Cisco script application. I'm going to give it some name, application 3100, and the ID should be unique for each and every applications. Here you can provide the maximum number of sessions. What does it say is what is the maximum number of calls that can be received for this application. Okay, so we would be providing the call control group, and for the call control group we have created 25 CDA ports. That means this UCCX can receive 25 call control group if any application uses that. But still we can limit the number of sessions for the application so that you can share the call control group with many applications. For example, here we have the call control group with 25 CDA ports. I can create 3 applications which can share the same call control group with 25 ports, and I would be able to limit 10 for 2 application and 5 for the third application, so that the cumulative the CDI ports or session would be 25, which equals the CDI ports or the call control groups. Okay, so I'm going to give it 10 here. And script we haven't created so far, but I would be using the system default script or S script. I'm going to select the icd.aef, and the CSQ I'm going to give it the one that we created, which is CSQ underscore resource group underscore sales. You should have to provide the exact name of the CSQ, which is case sensitive as well. And we would be discussing this later once we discussed about the scripting. And this should be enabled. And let me click add. It's going to add the application. So now the next job is to create the trigger so that this unified CCS contact the unified CM and create the CTA route point. Now if you go to the CTA route point, you would not find any CTA route point here. So I have to add the trigger here. Either I can add it here or I can go over to the trigger section here and I can click add new. So the directory number I'm going to give is 3100. It's going to use the default language. The application name is app3100 that we recently created. The device name is going to be CTRP3100, and I'm going to give the name as a description. The call control group. So this is for inbound, right? So I'm going to select the call control group that we created under inbound. So this has the 25 CTA ports. Okay. And here I have the option to again check this, I believe you still remember that when we create the application, we have provided a maximum session of 10, right? If that is the case, if we set this to default, so the maximum number of call that can be received by this directory number is 10, or we can check this and even we can limit this, say for example 5. So the CDI ports, the call control group has 25 CDI ports, and for the application we have defined 10 CDI ports or 10 sessions, and within the trigger we have mentioned 5, right? So what is the purpose of having the maximum number of sessions in both trigger and in application? So application is a place where you can associate many triggers, right? So for the application, we have provided 10 sessions, 10 maximum session. And for each trigger, you can again limit the number of calls, right? So for that purpose, you have this maximum number of sessions option available inside the trigger. So you can create 5 here, and you can go back to the application and add another trigger, and you can give a maximum number of sessions to 5, right? So that you are distributing. If you don't give the session number here, you would not know how many sessions are used by each trigger. It would be random. It's based on first in, first out, right? So if we provide the maximum number of sessions here, so that we are load balancing those 10 sessions to each trigger inside the application. So I have set to 5 here, and I'm going to leave the other settings. I would like to select the device pool to headquarters and location as well. Partition internal, calling search space is going to be internal, and would like to set the external phone number mask to this, and let me click add. And this is going to create the trigger in Unified CCX, and that would be created as a CTI route point in Unified CCX. So now we have the CTI route point in Unified CCX, and you can see that it is registered with the publisher CUCM, and the IP address of Unified CCX is here. So it has the number 3100. So whenever the Unified whenever the Unified CUCM receives a call for 3100, it knows that it have to send the call out to the Unified CCX. So it basically send a JDAP route request, and the Unified CCX reply back with the DN of the CTA ports. We have provided 5 CTA ports for the trigger 3100. So it would send the available port, available DN out of those 5 CTA ports, and then Unified CM send the setup message to the Unified CCX. So we have created those applications and also the call control groups. Let me quickly navigate over to the slide. So here you can see we have created those CDI ports and CDI route points with the help of adding the trigger and call control group in Unified CCX. And next, we're going to discuss this. So we have created the CTI route points and CTI ports in call manager. So when a call comes into the call manager and it matches a CTI route point, and it basically sends a JDAP route request to the Unified CCX, and Unified CCX reply back with the CTA DN, so that the call manager can pick up the CTA port and send the call out to the UCCX. So when the calls comes to the UCCX, it matches this trigger and it's associated with the application. So now it's time to execute the script. So far we haven't discussed anything about the scripts. So in the next section we are going to start discussing about how to develop the script through Cisco Unified Script UCCX script editor, and we would see how do we create or modify the scripts inside the Unified CCX script editor. So with that said, I'm going to stop this lecture, and I will see you in the next section where we start our discussion on Unified CCX script editor. Thanks for watching.